Hello, Martin with Maudal Musical Machines here, and right now I'm documenting the Disturbance Weissenborn. This is most likely 1923, but it is certainly somewhere between 1915 and 1923, dated by a couple of different independent folks, one of whom is Richard Barnes, who really knows these guys. There's the label that places it somewhere between 15 and 23. We think it's 23 because he really did kind of settle into this bracing pattern. This is basically right before he actually went into production. Herman Weissenborn we're talking about. When he went into production, things were a little more consistent. This is very clearly handmade in every aspect. Some of the things I really need to look at, though, one of the first things I'll do is you see the crack from underneath going up the length, and from the front it looks like this, going up to where the bridge was. Real issue, and the real tricky part, is going to be dealing with this. The bridge has a screw. You can see in the center right there towards the back of it. There's a screw, actually, and it's common and consistent with this instrument. And there was basically a pearl dot inlaid above that screw head. So the person who, did this repair or did a repair or did something wasn't aware of that when they tried to take the bridge off, and they did some pretty significant damage. You can see here, this is a centerpiece. There's a center seam there, and that's actually cracked on the back side. So I'll actually have to remove this. This crack, that goes along here, I can put a spruce cleat on using the traditional hide glue. It will shrink and actually pull this crack together. And then from the other side, I'll do other things. But the real issue here is, see this line? And really need to know about that because it's actually cut all the way through. This is the top is cut through there. The person who tried to pull off the bridge without knowing about the screw pulled out several pieces, realized he was making a crack, and not only a crack, but anyway, lots of pieces of wood, and thought he'd be limiting damage by going ahead and making a cut there to stop that. This still cracked along the center seam. There's a crack there. I don't know how well it's showing up here, but it's there, trust me. Okay, from here you can see it better. Right, so at any rate, these pieces are glued in, but barely. I can still feel movement in it, so it's really not glued in there. And I'm pretty certain that this was never under tension with this cut like that. Either that, or maybe it was for a very short time, and that's when they took it apart again for some later fixing. And that's now. That later time is now. Oh boy. What I was going to do, what would have been very simple, well, not very simple, but you get it, is I was going to put a new plate in anyway, because this plate's kind of chewed up and such, but and it's loose here on the end, you can see. So the gist of it is it's going to be relatively easy to take that off, but with all of those loose pieces, with that cut there, I will remove this middle piece in order to take care of that one crack. Do the same things I'm doing here, cleats across there, which will pull the crack together and actually end up being, as strong or stronger than this center thing anyway. According to Rufy, he actually stopped doing these center seams later on in the production phase. At any rate, the issue is doing a new, I can't do a plate the same shape, I don't think I can do that. If I pull this out, I'm basically necessarily pulling those little pieces out. So I think what I'm going to end up having to do is make a plate with this same shape here, but I believe I'm going to have it come down further so that it actually goes onto this part of the wood and, covers that to give that some strength. Because otherwise in the center here, there's nothing to hold that, there's nothing to hold the top. It's completely sawed through from here to here. So like these center three strings, from what would they be? The 2 string through the 2, 3, and 4 strings, essentially the top's not even connected. So the only way to deal with that, I think, is by making a larger plate that's maybe going to come down perhaps as much as a ½ an inch further and all the way across, basically the same shape, just, cut it in a little further this way. Also, this plate, I'm going to have to consult about this a little too, but this plate doesn't appear to be maple or anything hard. I think it's spruce. It's not hard like I would expect it to be, like a plate underneath the body would be. Now, I don't know if they went to maple plates later on in production, or if he did it earlier, or if this is a one-off. That's one of the things that Richard Barnes was telling me, that there was some pretty significant variation on things on these instruments, at this period, all the way from 1915 through now. For example, this may be the only one that has a sycamore end plate, for no apparent reason other than the fact that it looks kind of cool. But there you have it. Also, it looks like a repairer did something on the finish there because of that light patch. It's not a patch of the glue, but it looks like, I don't know. It's possible. But at any rate, the sycamore piece is definitely original. The original old, darker hide glue is used there. So, okay, so, for the moment, that's it. This is basically, just after getting the back off, which was an interesting enough thing in itself. That was actually the thing that scared me the most about doing this, was trying to get this top off without doing more damage than was already there. So we managed to do that, and again, I want to thank and acknowledge Richard Barnes for his absolutely invaluable help in doing that. Okay, so again, this to me looks like the biggest issue. I'm gonna, right now, basically, I'm doing this thing, this particular segment of the documentation of this to kind of just get out my thinking on it. I am really thinking about this. I'm going to think quite a bit more before I actually do anything, just because it's one of those, it's a 100-year-old instrument. You just don't jump into this stuff without taking some serious time on it. So there we are. This, I believe, is going to have to be the first thing that I do. We have, a couple of these brace pieces that literally were hanging. They weren't even attached. These 2 braces are loose. I think that I will loosen them a little bit more so that when I do the cleats on this crack in the top, they're loose enough, it's loose enough from there that the cleats will be able to, as they dry, pull the cracks together. If I did this first, then that wouldn't be able to happen. So we do the crack first, but I think before I even do that, I'm going to have to remove this centerpiece and remove this back plate. I'm pretty scared of doing that because I don't want to do more damage. It may very well be that the plate's the only thing that's holding these 2 pieces on anyway. So I think basically they're just going to come out with the plate. And so I'm then going to have to remove them from the plate. I think then, I glue the plate back in, and then once the plate is there and I have a solid base to work on, then I will try to fit these 2 pieces back in, as perfectly as I can. And then the bridge, unlike the bottom plate, is going to be the same exact shape as this and size. So I don't know. I think the edge of the bridge comes, the bridge piece comes right up to that edge. So I think it's very likely that I can, put that in, and this, anyway, will be virtually invisible. Once the cleats are on this crack, it should be virtually invisible. I hope to not have to do any touching up with shellac, but if I have to, I will. Same thing with this crack. Okay, there we are. I hope this whole thing is interesting enough for you to listen to me talk for 10 plus minutes. And here we go. I'll do a little more documenting after I've got something to document. All right, you guys, Martin with Maudal Musical Machines. See y'all later.